Oh, hi there, this is Leo from TechLine, and we actually have a more in-person video, this time with a lavalier microphone, because I find that this makes it a little bit easier to record video so I don't have to do a voiceover afterwards. But what we're going to be discussing over here is a problem that I need to fix with my personal rig that we have over here on the side. As a couple of issues that it has. One, yes, it's filthy, and I know a lot of you have said that in my previous video. As you can see over here from the comments section, when I upgraded from an AMD 3600 to an AMD 5800 X3D, the biggest comment that a lot of you said in that video was how filthy the computer was, even though I said it was clean. And yes, I did clean it up a bit more afterwards in the video, but I didn't actually show that in the video. So this time around, I'm going to just do a full deep clean of the computer, but I also have to solve a separate issue entirely that my PC is having. And this started happening around a couple of days ago, where the PC just started shutting itself off for no reason whatsoever. So of course, doing the regular troubleshooting methods that I would do at this point in time, I started checking the temperatures, which first, there's no issues on the temperature side of things. My processor, the 5800 X3D, and my graphics card, the RTX 3070, neither of them have gotten above 70 degrees Celsius, so that wasn't really much of a concern when it came to temperatures. From there, it became checking other factors that were going on, just see if there were any kind of blue screen reports, which there were none, check the Windows Event Viewer, which nothing came from that either. So of course, I gotta start looking at the hardware at that point. What else could just cause your computer to just shut itself off for no reason whatsoever? And at that point, I think the answer became a faulty power supply. Now, the power supply that I have in this computer is 12 years old. That's right, I bought a very old power supply. I've actually been using the same power supply for multiple PC builds in a row as opposed to replacing it as necessary. It is a 750 watt power supply that I got, and it hasn't had me any issues in that time. 750, I thought it over a decade ago would be more than enough for most applications, which is true in most cases. Even in today's cases, honestly, 750 is pretty good for a lot of computer builds. However, when you start looking at newer graphic cards that are out there, the RX 7000 series as well as the newer NVIDIA 40 series of graphics cards, they're starting to make a lot bigger power demands. They're starting to ask for around 850 watts when it comes to the power coming out of your computer. So what we're going to do today is hopefully solve a couple of problems at the same time. One, fully clean out my computer again, as it is kind of a monthly process when you live with cats. And the second is going to be completely replace out the power supply to stop having these shutdown problems that I've been having for the last couple of days with this kilowatt power supply that I got from EVGA, which rest in peace once again to their GPU division. I'm going to miss those GPUs of theirs. I thought they were really cool. But hey, 1,000 watts, that's a lot of power, especially when it comes to future-proofing myself, because I'm certain that the next couple of series of graphic cards that either AMD, Intel, or NVIDIA puts out is going to ask for some real juice, and I'm going to need that kind of power in my hands if I'm going to be testing them within my own rig. So let's get this thing fully opened out, cleaned up, take out the old power supply, and start putting this new big boy in there. This video is brought to you by us over at TechLinePCs.com, where you can check out our store for custom mid-range builds, along with our consolation page, where you can fill in whether you'd like an upgrade, a new build, a pre-built PC, along with a budget, and we'll work with you on the PC of your choice. Check us out again over at TechLinePCs.com. So let's get our weapons out. We're going to be using some Lysol wipes, some all-purpose cleaner, some paper towels, a brush that I'll use for the fans, and my favorite blower. So we'll have to start by disassembling a good amount of the computer by first taking off the filters. The big door that's at the front just kind of snaps right off, so it's pretty easy to take off. The side panels, both the front door and the back panel, are going to have to come off as well, so we can expose all the parts that we need. And if you can see over here, the cable management's kind of garbage because, well, it's just a big mess of cables. It's not a modular power supply. So with the doors and filters removed, we're just going to have to take off the power supply itself from unplugging it from every device that it's plugged into. It includes the graphics card, the motherboard, and a couple of the pieces over in the back. We'll also be taking out the graphics card itself, my 3070, just to also give that a good cleaning while we're at it. My Noctua cooler is also going to be coming off because I may as well be giving the fans and the heatsink itself also a deep cleaning while I'm at it. So we're just going to go with a full-on, complete removal of it, give it a good old blowing from there as well, a brush, and also reapplying the thermal paste. Now this hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm always afraid of popping off this heatsink and the processor comes out with it, so I make sure to turn on the computer for a little bit before I do that. All right, now that everything's done over on the inside, we just need to strip everything over from the back side. First, we'll take off these very convenient strips from the back, so that way we can get all the cable management out of here. And we'll also have to take out the old power supply, the Corsair TX750 that I've been using for the last dozen years. Just got to remove all the brackets and all the screws, and we'll pop the new one in there. And snake out this huge mess of cables so we don't have to worry about this anymore or shove it all into there. There's a lot of extra cables that we don't need, so it does become a packed mess down here. And there it is in all of its glory, what remains of my old power supply. I'm not a fan of using power supplies that look like this anymore in my future builds, that's for sure. Now over to our garage to blow out all these fans and filters. And of course, we got to blow out the case itself. Now we'll just go ahead and grab the backside and the undercarriage while we're at it as well. Looking way better already. So from there, now it's going to be a bit more hand-to-hand cleaning. I'm going to grab all the filters and brush them all out with this brush that I've got over here, and also the front panel while we're at it. The front panel was looking a little bit more gross than the rest of the devices here, or the rest of the filters, so I did have to grab some wet wipes and really give that a much better scrub to even get the logo looking cleaner. The fans and heat sinks are going to get a very similar treatment. We're just going to grab some wipes, get all the dust that are inside of it, and go them all around, and also clean down the between area. This is why I use a brush for the heat sinks as well. I can actually really get on the inside. And finish off with a wipe down of the device itself. Gotta also make sure to wipe off all the old thermal paste that I was using. As you can see, the coverage here wasn't the best when I originally applied it on my last build, so we're just going to put a little bit more than usual. My RTX 3070 is also going to get the same treatment as well, just brushing all between the blades. The 3070 actually, even just from using the electric blower heads, looked like it was fine, so the brushing didn't really seem necessary, but I figured, when in Rome. Now the case itself is also going to need a full-on wipe down as well. I'm using wet wipes for the outer areas that aren't anywhere near the motherboard itself. Get that nice glossy shine over on the inside and on the top side as well. And we'll also be doing the front panel area and the fans as well, just to get that all nice and shiny. And with just a couple of more wipes, we can actually consider cleaning this computer complete. And from here, we're just going to have to rebuild this whole thing. So with the case cleaned out and the power supply removed, let's open up this 1000 GT from EVGA. Got a lot of cables here to shift through, and I'm kind of concerned as to why they don't include a pouch like a bunch of their other power supplies that they had, but that's fine. We could put this somewhere else. Look at this beast. More than enough connections that I will probably ever need anytime soon. So let's get a bunch of these modular cables plugged in. We got to get one in there for the motherboard, of course. My graphic card only needs a single power cable, but I have seen a couple of them out there that required 3, so kind of future-proofing on that. One of them for the CPU, though there are a couple that require 2, and one for my fan controller and another for my drives. From there, we just need to screw on this bracket so that way we can actually mount it over to my fractal case. And then we'll just snake all the cables in there first, as there's a lot more space in there now to put a lot of these cables in. As I don't need as many cables as my last power supply I already had plugged into it. We'll just snake them all in there and push the power supply in, and properly screw the power supply in using these thumb screws. Usually use my fingers first for these, and then just secure with a Phillips head screwdriver afterwards. Alright, getting to the home stretch, we're finally snaking all the cables in through the cable management areas that this case has. And we're just going to plug in all the devices. Mainly the motherboard has the 2 cables that are in there, one for the CPU, one for the motherboard itself. And we'll have that extra cable that's going to hang out there for a little bit. One for my fan controller. And we're going to remount the Noctua cooler with a bit more thermal paste this time around, as I didn't have enough last time. All right, we'll just get my knock to a cooler back on here. Properly mount it and screw it onto the motherboard. And get the second of its two fans clipped back on in there. And what's always the final piece of a build for me, it is going to be my RTX 3070. We'll just snap that back on in there. Get that single power cable plugged in and mount it back onto the chassis as I should be. Nice and secure. Now let's get these filters back on here that I cleaned out a little bit earlier. So you got the bottom filter that's being air sucked in by the power supply, and the front door, which fully snaps on in and closes right on. And with that, we'll just do a little bit of cable management in the back, just kind of tie in all these cables that I have over here and get it nice and neat. And look at this, it's definitely a much cleaner build than beforehand. I'm kind of liking what's going on here. So we just skipped forward a couple of days, 3 days exact, from the last time I was making a recording about this video, just to kind of update as to what was going on there, because I feel like when you do something as big as a power supply change to see what's going on with shutdowns happening on your computer, you want to make sure that nothing happens for the next couple of days. So of course, nothing's happened. Everything's working now. The power supply swap did exactly what I was supposed to do over there. So everything has been working ever since the power supply has been changed over to the new 1000-watt power supply that I got there from EVGA. So this old unfortunate Corsair TX750 that I had with the spaghetti Cthulhu-like cables that I have over here, I'm just going to have to discard it. Oftentimes I would like to try and take parts, use them for something else or anything like that, like another build, but if it's something like a power supply that's dropping off from you for whatever reason, you just got to get rid of the whole thing. So I'll just snip all the cables and recycle that power supply properly and just, discard it at that point. I generally also make sure that whenever I purchase power supplies, it's always brand new ones. I don't trust used power supplies for the same reason, as things like that could end up occurring, and I don't want that to transfer over to any of my customers that are buying my PCs. As for the temperatures, as I'm sure a lot of you folks might also have been pointing out, like, oh my god, it's so dusty, what's the temps looking like in there? Well, I'm happy to report that there's no temperature change when it comes to my graphics card. The RTX 3070 is still at game load running at about 70 degrees Celsius, which isn't a big issue. However, my processor did drop in temperature by somewhere between 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. So it went from also going from 70 when I'm on a game load to about 65, 63 around that area. I don't believe that the undusting of my computer actually did anything like that, because the actual heatsink didn't have a lot of clutter or clog in it. The fans that were in there didn't have any kind of clog in it. I mean, sure, there was a little bit in the front over on the filter that's over there, so I might be able to put a before and after of just what the computer looks like from this angle. However, I noticed that when I was taking off the heatsink, the entire processor itself didn't have full coverage of the thermal paste that was on it. There was a solid, like, quarter area around the corner that was missing some thermal paste. So that most likely was the culprit when it comes to the temperatures that were going on over inside the processor itself, which I fixed by just adding more thermal paste and spreading it around a bit more when I was originally putting the heatsink back over onto the processor itself. So my issues are resolved. Everything's been great. Not a single shutdown or artifact issue that was going on. So those are some things that you can actually look into yourself whenever you're seeing any kind of random sudden shutdown issues that are going on with your computer as well. If it's not overheating, if it's not blue screen issues, if you're not finding anything within the event viewer for whatever odd reason, and it only happens during things like game loads, and it's still causing things like artifacts to show up on screen and sudden shutdowns and bringing it back up, it might either be, at that point, two things: your graphics card or the power supply. And generally, I'll go for whichever is the oldest of the two to diagnose which is going to be those issues. And in my case, it was the power supply. So now that that's over, don't have to worry about it anymore. And I'll just keep on gaming and keep on building from there. So until the next video, where I should be getting a RX 6650 XT as well as the Intel A750 to do a comparison between two $250 MSRP cards to kind of see what they are looking like head to head and what I want to build using those cards over there. Please stay tuned for that, and I'll have that posted as soon as I can. Until next time, this is Leo from TechLine, signing off.